Yeah, I can't take credit for the heart fly. Actually,
You
John.
didn't tie that up?
No, I didn't tie that. Not sure who did. We found it online though. So,
That's pretty neat.
all right, let's kick off here. Welcome to everyone to our February Valentine's Day. Getting a few more people dinging in on us here. To our February Canandaigua Lake TU meeting. Have I think a pretty good program here. Nice, exciting local fly tying expert. And so without further ado, let's move along here. And yep. There we go. All right, this is our usual agenda. Just kick the meeting off. We'll do the Pledge of Allegiance in a second. Show some fish pictures and some reports. Some other general updates. Al will give us his conservation updates. And we'll also talk about a membership survey that we just opened up and do an update on our upcoming Intro to Fly Fishing School that we're going to hold in May. We had a really good meeting a few weeks ago on how we want to proceed with that. And then we'll get into our guest speaker, Mr. Bob Herson, and he'll talk about his business, the Bohemian Fly Fisher. And got another one there. Okay, so let me remove my hat and well, there we go. Okay, they always like to do the Pledge of Allegiance and always look for a photo that's kind of appropriate for the month. And in February of 1945 was the Battle of Iwo Jima, and that's when this really famous photograph was taken. Won a Pulitzer Prize, I believe, and was the inspiration for the statue in Arlington Cemetery. But so we've had some tough times the past 2 years when you think about what those brave men went through who were in that battle. Putting that flag up kind of puts it in perspective. So let's repeat the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, and to the republic
for which it stands,
one nation under
God,
indivisible,
liberty and justice for all.
Justice for all. Okay, thank you. And let me just do some security stuff here. And we can get going there. Okay. So here's some, we didn't have a lot of pictures because it's been a good old-fashioned winter so far, but our good friend Tyler, he's always very photogenic there. He sent this of a big lake trout he caught. He said he caught that in Keuka Lake, which I was surprised that they get that big there, but that was pretty impressive lake trout on the left there. And then Carl Palmer sent us this nice brown trout photo, and didn't say what stream it's in, but a really real dark, nice winter colors on that brown trout there. And then there's been a real good season for ice fishing if you're into that. And this is actually Tyler's girlfriend, Tatiana. Didn't say where they were ice fishing, but it looks like one of the Finger Lakes just by the hills coming down.
Is that a bluegill?
That's a very big bluegill.
Wow.
Very big frozen bluegill.
Oh
So,
man, that's huge.
and a nice yellow perch. They really got into them. I put a picture in the of all the panfish they caught in through the ice there. So some real nice ice fishing. It should still, I think, still be pretty solid there. We haven't but it looks like it's going to get warmer this week, so time may be limited for doing that.
Wow.
Okay, so no one from Florida has sent me any pictures yet, but I was talking to Will about some of the snook fishing he's been doing. So, okay, welcome, especially if you're new to our meeting. If you are, just if you could introduce yourself using the chat feature, just tell us, say hello and welcome. And just some quick statistics there. Our membership, we're up to 237 chapter members, and there we have 341 fans of our Facebook group, which is a real good place. If you have fish photos and you like to use Facebook, it's a good place to put those. And that's where I usually grab fishing pictures for our newsletter and this meeting. And we put our newsletter up on there. And also we have our YouTube channel, which we started last year. And all of the meetings, and we're recording this meeting, we will put the recording out on YouTube. So if you miss the meeting to attend it live, you can always catch up to it later. And that's been pretty popular. The most popular meeting we recorded was last May when we did a profile on the Cohocton River. And we've had, I think, north of 150 people view that recording. So that one was our most popular so far, but all of them have come out pretty good. Most of them are about an hour and a half long. So we invite you to take a look at that. And our upcoming meetings, our next meeting is a month from today on March 14th. And this should be a really good program too. Dr. Keith Tidball is from, he works at Cornell in the Cooperative Extension. And he also is very active in TU in the Service Partnership, which was our veteran programs, and which has actually been expanded now to all first responders. So he's going to give us an update on some of that work. And so I'm really looking forward to it. I saw the presentation he did in November, and it was really interesting. So can't wait to hear what Keith has to say. And then April 11th, we're doing our Keith Klingensmith from the FFI chapter at Corning is going to be our guest speaker again. He has a number of programs, so we haven't decided on which one he'll be doing, but we've actually gotten a pretty good partnership with that group, the Twin Tiers 5 Rivers chapter. And a month ago, we actually shared a meeting with them, and they're very active. So I'd like to get even a closer relationship with them because they share a lot of the same waters that we do, especially the Cohocton River. And then in May 14th, on a Saturday, we're having our Intro to Fly Fishing School, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. And then in June, we're going to have we always like to do a picnic at the end of the season, and we're going to do it at the Cohocton River at the what they used to call the restricted access, or what was that called? Anyway, it's the one on the Avoca back
One
road.
fly challenge.
Yeah, we're gonna do the one fly challenge and have a picnic, and we'll give you more details on what time and stuff that'll come. We haven't done that in a while, so we're gonna restart that. But our picnics have been pretty popular the past June. And then in July 11th, this is a Monday, we're gonna do our second annual Bass and Panfish Invitational at Boughton Park in East Bloomfield, which was a real popular event and kind of gave us, a chance to do some warm water fishing in the summertime. Okay, this is always my monthly plea for volunteers, which thank you everyone who's does step up on these things. And we'll talk a little bit about what we are looking for in May at our fly fishing school, and also other things. If you have a story you want to share, or photos or things to put in a newsletter, please email those to info@canandaigualaketU.org. And once we hopefully get started, I'm optimistic that we might actually be able to meet in person I don't know if in March, but maybe in April. And so we'll get back to having our audio visual equipment and some refreshments. Hopefully, I'm looking forward to being able to get together again in person soon. So, and Al will talk about the programs he has coming up also. All right. Let's see what's next here. Okay, Al, I'll put you up and talk about the conservation. Yeah, Will just said special regs area. Yes, that's where we'll meet in
Yeah.
June.
And that's where we usually met for the one fly challenge. That's why I mentioned it. That's the same DEC parking lot.
Right.
Between Avoca and Wallace.
Right.
So I just briefly mentioned, we've talked a lot about the Crossroad project, but I know each time we have a meeting, we got some new people on. So I just mentioned, one of the things we've started is the Crossroad project. And within that project, we're going to build 9 habitat improvement structures in the Cohocton River. And those structures are going to be primarily large trees that we're going to put on in the river, angling downstream. And then we're going to also have some boulders that's associated with each one of these 9 trees. So we had hoped to get that in the water last July, but last year the water levels were much higher than we want them to be when we did the work. We want the water pretty low so we don't have a whole lot of erosion. And the more water we got in the river when we try to put these structures in, the harder it's going to be to put them in. So we actually had the large piece of equipment we were going to use down by the river in July, but we made a last minute decision to hold off on it because the water was too high. Then we were going to do it and try to do it in August, and the water is still too high. September, and the water just stayed high most last year. So we're going to put these 9 structures in, plus we're going to put trees along the bank on both sides of the river in that area. Right now, I've tentatively got it scheduled on a schedule to try again to get this the trees in the river, the structures in the river, the week of 18 July. So I'll be looking for some volunteers the week of 18 July to do that. But this spring, I've got about 90 trees coming in. And when they come in, I'm going to have to put them in containers so I can keep them alive until we can plant them later in the summer. So that's gonna, because you can't get rootstock in the middle of the summer. I really want to get the trees in the ground this summer. So we're going to get the trees in sometime in the spring. I'll be looking for help to put them in the containers, and then we'll have to do our best to keep them alive until we can plant them. Hopefully we'll be able to plant them by late July, get them in the ground. We'll have to, like we usually do, we'll have to put our protective materials around the trees to protect them from all the critters. So that project's the big thing we got in the mill. We may be planting a few other trees, some other locations, but I don't have that pinned down. But I really need to finish that Crossroad project this coming summer. I've got on there casting for recovery. I put out a request to the membership to tie flies, and I'm happy to report I have about 14 people that tied flies up for us. So we're going to be giving about donating about 175 flies to these ladies who are participating in the Casting for Recovery program. So I definitely want to thank everybody who tied flies. We got a lot of beautiful flies, and it's been reported to me, just how excited all these ladies are when they present them with this big box of flies that they don't use them all during the retreat that they go to, but they can use them in the days ahead. So the only other thing I'll mention, which Gordon put in the newsletter, is due to some family situations, there's a good chance I'll be leaving this area. As much as I hate to say it, I may be leaving this area in either latter part of 22 or sometime in 23. I think you all know I've been conservation chairman since I joined about 1996, and we've done a lot of great things, cleanups, planting trees, habitat improvement projects. We help with the invasive species program at Canandaigua Lake. But it looks like whether I want to or not, I'll probably be headed west, like I say, in 22 or 23. So if anybody wants to step up and volunteer to be the next conservation chairman, contact me, because it's real important that we get somebody to kind of step forward before I go, because there's a pretty good learning curve to kind of learn how to put all this stuff together. So if anybody wants to even think about it, contact me and we can talk about it. That's all I got, Gordon.
All right, well, that's, we'll really miss you, of course, Al. I mean, it's tremendous, big shoes to fill, but it'll probably take, I think, a committee of people to maybe approach what you've been able to do all these years. But I appreciate you telling us, giving us so much advance notice on it too, because it is such an important position. And one of the things we're really probably best known for in TU nationally is the work that you've done in our conservation area. So we're gonna have a big party for you, I'll tell you that. So it won't be a
Yeah,
surprise.
well, I've had a lot of great help through the years. A lot of the guys tuned in here tonight have put a lot of work and effort into helping get the stuff done. So I greatly appreciate all the support over the years.
All right. So well, thanks for all of that, Al. Al, do you know what about the stocking this spring? Any word from the DEC? Do you?
I haven't got the final word on that. Last I checked with them, there's a possibility that we may be able to work with them, but there's been no firm decision. I think as you can see, there's a lot of things going on regarding COVID in New York. So I think they may be backing off, some of their mandates, and we may be able to work with them, but that decision has not been made yet.
Okay. That'd be great to be able to do those again. That was probably one of our most popular events. Plus, it helped you learn where the fish were, because you could go to the sponsor.
I think it makes a lot of difference, not only on how good the fishing is all summer, but it makes a lot of difference on the natural propagation in the future years, I think.
Yeah. All right, great. Well, thanks a lot, Al. Well, okay, what's next on our agenda? Okay, we created a survey, which we put the link in this February's Tightlines newsletter. And if you want to participate in it, it's underneath my president's message and above the Orvis ad. So it's I want to give a lot of thanks. I see Ralph signed on to the meeting. I want to thank him, and especially his wife, Cindy, for helping us design and build the questions for the survey. And it was actually pretty easy after they did that work to fit it in. Our mailing system actually had a survey feature to it. So I was able to take the questions that Cindy and Ralph put together for us and pretty easily link them up into our newsletter, into our mailing list. So thanks to them for that work. It's pretty quick. It's only about 24 questions. It should take you less than 5 minutes or so to complete, but we're already getting some good feedback on it. And I put some of the comments so far that we've received. And you can see on the right there, one person said they were new to Canandaigua, but looking to get more involved with TU. And I like this one the best. I believe you're doing a good job. My concerns are my wife and I are actually just getting started and feel too much like a so-called newbie. So not sure where new folks fit in. So that's really good feedback, because if you are kind of new to fly fishing or trout fishing, it can be intimidating sometimes to come to a meeting where it seems like everybody's been doing it for, 30, 40 years and, fished around the world and so forth. But none of us, come out of the womb knowing how to fly fish. So we all have a learning curve, and I get a lot of gratification out of helping beginners. So thanks for that feedback. And then this is also one we got from one of our snowbirds who spends the winter in Florida and appreciates being able to attend the meetings via Zoom. So thanks for that feedback. So if you haven't taken the survey, I urge you to take a look at it, and it'll help us design what our future programs will be. And also, kind of give us a report card on how we're doing and what you might, like to see in future programs. Okay, and then finally, our intro to fly fishing school that we're going to hold in May, Saturday, May 14th. Here's some of the details that we've worked out so far on it. It's going to be at Ononda Park, which is on the west shore of Canandaigua Lake. Real beautiful park. That's the picture below is from there. And we're be attending in, let's see, Crouch Hall is the name of the lodge that the class will be held in. We're limiting the attendance to only 20 students. That was for COVID protocol. The hall actually has a capacity of about 75 people, so we should be able to spread out pretty well. Now, hopefully by then it won't, we'll be a little more out of the woods with this thing, but we'll have plenty of social distance in the room. It's going to be 3 hours long from 9 a.m. till noon. And we're designing it for beginners, like that comment we got. We want people that are, either brand new or pretty new to fly fishing. We don't know previous knowledge is required. And we're looking to really kind of streamline it from what we've done in the past. So we've kind of stripped it down, hopefully, to just the basics. And we want to get people outside as quickly as possible. So we're going to do kind of a brief 30-minute or so introduction to the fly fishing tackle, the rods and the lines and so forth. And then pretty quickly, we want to get folks outside. There's a great big yard area in the park. We'll be able to spread out and practice casting. And after we do that for an hour or so, then we'll reconvene and go over to some more topics. And then we also had talked about having some smaller kind of breakout groups for more advanced things like, knot tying or entomology and so forth. So still working some of that out, but that's kind of the general framework of it. And we will be, whatever the current COVID protocols are in effect at the time, we will be following them. We'll asking that people be vaccinated to come to the class and show proof of that. And we're not going to provide any refreshments this year beyond bottled water. Students should bring their own snacks and lunch. And maybe in the future, depending how well this goes and in a new normal post-COVID future, we'll be able to have a little bigger class and and have a little more refreshments and things. But for the moment, we're going to keep it kind of nice and simple this year. This is also the first year we've done it since, I believe, 2016. So we're kind of, warming up to it again. Let's see, I have a question. And Larry, good question. Would this be open to just TU members? No, it's open to anybody. And if not, will you offer a free 1-year trial membership to attendees? I would, yes. And age limits, didn't really talk about that, but I don't see any reason why we would need any age limits. We want youngsters to learn how to fish too. So So yeah, it's open to anybody, and if they're not TU members, we'll give them, we'll get those postcards from that Orvis gives us that offers free membership. Okay, so that's about all of the business updates. And let me introduce our guest speaker, Mr. Bob Herson, who's the Bohemian fly fisher. And this is kind of a brief biography he sent me. He started his business 27 years ago, and the majority of it is selling, he ties flies that he sells wholesale and retail, along with bamboo fly rods and fishing books. Bob's also a licensed guide and teaches casting, and has been fly fishing since he was 12 years old. And his major influences are kind of the Catskill style of tying, although he ties all patterns. And but some of his big customers are down in the Catskill area, the Detty Fly Shop and the Beaverkill Valley Inn. And Bob's other gig is very demanding. He's a mental health family therapist with the Hillside agency. So that pretty demanding work there. So this is his other gig here. Okay, Bob. So without further ado.
Well, thank you for inviting me to the meeting tonight. I'm impressed with how well organized this is. But my own experience of fly tying started when I was very young. And if people don't know where I live right on the 900 on the other side. And that's not a coincidence. We were looking for a long time for a home right in Caledonia on Spring Brook. And it's really nice because I just walked on the tracks and check out the fish situation. And it's Spring Brook has always been a love of mine, along with the Watka too. And a lot of people think I have a shop. I really don't have a shop. I don't keep hours. You're never going to see me at a fly tying show mainly because I work nonstop. I have so many flies to make, I can't fathom the number. But I must like to do it. I do it every night. And it's kind of nice too, because I've made a lot of friends just by I have a little sign up for the business, and that's the only advertising I've ever done. And over the years, I get these really steady clients that become friends, and it's been a really interesting process to get the business going. I didn't know what to expect because I've tied flies forever, basically. Carl Coleman taught me a lot, and a bunch of other people have really influenced me, and I must like to do it. And actually, some of these photos are from fish this year. That's a big brown right there on the left, and but fishing's kind of hit or miss now up here. But in general, my own background is I was the only boy with 6 sisters, and I was a middle child, so I knew I had to get out of the house as much as possible. And I did that by fishing. And it was an interesting thing is we're living in Port Washington, Long Island, and it was in kindergarten. I had a teacher, when kids are little, they sit around the teacher and they read. And this teacher read me trout fishing stories. And that automatically hooked me. My father wasn't an outdoorsman in any way, but that teacher literally reading me these stories really was a big influence on my interest in fishing. And then I got really into fly fishing. And at the age of 13, I rode to a place called the Bonneview on the Beaverkill to see if I could work there over the summer, just because I wanted to be on the Beaverkill. I already knew everything about it. I also had a choice of Ray Cooper's Minippy camps up in Labrador, but my parents said, no way, you're not going to Labrador. But they did drop me off at this inn, and I spent the whole summer there and was taught fly casting by some of these wonderful old-time fly fishermen. And it was there that the innkeeper would drop me off at the shop of Elsie and Harry Darby. And I knew who they were before I ever went in the shop, and I was totally enamored with their history. And so she gave me my first lesson in tying. And I really think that's the big reason why I really like to tie for other people, because I was just so impressed with the two of them. And then when I came back, Carl taught me a lot. And Carl had a helper named Rick Tabor, who was there forever. And Rick taught me a lot on tying, and he was a commercial tire. And his work was just beautiful. So I really got into it pretty heavy, probably about the age of 14. And along with that, I was collecting books at 14. I got my first bamboo fly rod from Carl Coleman when I was in high school. And I'm an avid collector of books. Any bamboo, I help people, I sell bamboo rods too, but I also help people locate the kind of bamboo rod they like. And I know so many of the, hold on a second here, my cat's bugging me. That's Smokey. But so I've really been a fanatic since probably around 14, and it hasn't died down at all. I mean, if I'm on vacation, I don't tie flies. The first thing I do when I go home is tie flies. And so pretty much on and off, like even through college, I'd be tying for shops, tying for beer money. But about 27 years ago, we moved here to Spring Street in Caledonia. And that's when I decided to try to start a business. And, you know, it is a business. It's not a hobby for me. Every night I work. And a lot of times when you guys are out fishing, I'm tying flies. There were years where I wouldn't even hit the water until August because I had so much work to do. But in general, it's turned out to be it's been pretty good profit wise. Like I figure where retail orders, I make between $25 and $30 an hour. And my wholesale work is usually between like $20 to $25 an hour. And to me, that's not really that bad for a part-time job. And the amazing thing is once I started to do this, I just got a steady group of clients along with wholesale people. And I've only had a half a day in 27 years. And that was this year where I didn't have a fly to tie. It just hit me in the middle of the day. I told my wife, so Missy, I can't believe it. I don't have any flies to tie. So it's really been a good thing. I didn't know what to expect when I started it. But it's you know, I have an accountant take care of all my stuff. I buy everything wholesale. I do talk to other guys that tie commercially. And there are two kinds of tires, commercial tires. There are guys that really make a lot of flies. I mean, they crank them out, like Francis Batters. I worked for him, and I'd be talking to him at the shop, and I love Francis. And you'd be talking to him, and all of a sudden there'd be like 30 flies right there. It's like magic. You don't even know how he did it, because he was a fast tire. His work was nice too. But I'm more of like a tire that like Elsie Darby, Mary Daddy, you know, they're really picky. And I worked for Mary for like, I don't know, probably 18 years. And she was just fantastic. And every summer or every fall, I'd take notes and go down there and we'd sit around and I'd ask her all these questions. She was just wonderful. She taught me so much, along with a lot of other people too. But I'm more like a quality flies that they're not going to blow up on the stream. And I do little things that I think the average tire wouldn't do to make sure the flies are durable. Like one example would be when I make hare's ears, when you put the wing case over it. Most people don't lacquer them. I lacquer them like 3 or 4 times because I don't want those wing cases breaking up. So I'm always finding different ways to make better flies. So I'm more of like a steady tire than a guy that I've heard of guys saying they make 20 flies an hour. And I still don't know how that's possible. If I can make 10 or 12, that's really good. But it's really been an interesting process, picking out materials, dealing with all the feather guys like Charlie Collins. I used to use his necks. He's down by Elmira, and I'd ride down on my motorcycle and spend the morning with him. And he was a character. So you get to meet all these people that are in the business. And that itself has been really pretty satisfying for me. But I'm going strong at it. And one thing people don't realize is sometimes I'll pull up to the house and they think I have flies for sale. And I have to explain to them that, you know, I make everything to order, because everything I literally make is probably late to begin with. You know, somebody wants it. And sometimes I'll sell other people's flies if I know I can replace them pretty quick. But it's been a really good business. I didn't know what to expect. I really didn't expect to be this busy. But it's really helped out. It's like right now, I don't even keep track of how many flies I make. I don't want to know. That would be overwhelming to realize I have to make like 500 dozen flies in like a month or two.
Let me skip to that one picture you showed me, just to give everyone an idea of
Oh, okay.
what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
So this was what go ahead.
That's the Daddy Yellowstone. I make 1 million of those. And in that pile, there's 17 dozen flies. And that pile is that's at least $450, $500. So, but it's really tedious, to say the least. But it's a really hard fly to make, so I like to make it. And when I first started out making it, it was, I had a tough time with it. There's all these little tricks that you learn over time. And every year I always think I get better at it. And actually, I'm never happy with anything I make, so I'm always looking to get better. But it's fun to make the tough flies. I don't do the trip flies, the egg sacs, stuff like that. I really like the catskill dries with the wood duck wings, the nymphs, the classic wet flies. I hate making streamers. I don't know how people can make money on streamers. But I'll do them. I'll do anything people want, except I don't do bass bugs, don't do any deer hair, just because I'm allergic to deer hair. But it's really been a fun business. And you make a lot of friends along the way, and it keeps me busy. Keeps me really busy. So.
I bet, gosh.
Yeah, I pretty much live on coffee. I'm never in bed before 12 or 1 o'clock. I try to find different ways to break up the monotony of doing it, and I haven't quite found it yet. But it's also fun, you learn materials. Carl Coleman taught me a lot about materials, what to select next, what to select. Right now I'm on a Mets kick where I use a lot of Mets necks for my dry flies, but I also get them from Whiting, and they're good too, but they're really, even wholesale, they're really expensive. So I've really liked the Mets because you get a lot for your money with the dry flies. And hunters are my best friends. I mean, there are days where I'll come home and there will be 20 dead ducks on the stoop waiting for me. Because I never pass up mallards, and I love wood ducks. So if any of you guys are hunters and you want to shoot some wood duck, I want you to pay you for it or make flies for you. The Drake wood ducks. That's with the feather under the wing for the classic catskill kind of pattern. But it's been fun. It keeps me very busy.
I bet, gosh.
Yeah. It's also nice being on Spring Brook too. Anahuatka. As I was telling Al, the fishing is kind of iffy now. Right when you think it's getting better, there seem to be setbacks up here. And I've kind of given up trying to predict the future of both these streams. But
let me go back to some of your fish pictures here.
Sure.
Yeah, okay, there, that one.
See,
So
now this brown right here, I love. If you guys don't know about this, the Genesee Country Museum has land across from the museum. I don't know how many acres they have back there. And I gladly pay them. What I do is I pay them $750 a year. And you have unlimited access back in this beautiful area. They cut the trails. The fishing pressure is just me and a guy named Greg Rapley. That's it. And it's beautiful back there. Some people don't like the fact that you have to walk, I think it's probably like 15, 20 minutes to the water, but I look forward to that. I can't wait to do that. And sometimes I walk right from my house down to the museum. And the fishing is kind of tough because if you catch 3 fish, you've had a good day. And it's probably like 60, 70% wild browns. And then you have the state fish that drip back from the trail. But there's some really nice big fish. Like that fish on the left, that has to be a 22-inch brown. And I caught that in the museum, and that's a totally wild fish. And the other fish is also too, but the colors and the pattern of the one on the right was so beautiful. And that's probably a 16-inch fish.
That's some big spots.
Yeah, big spots. Is a gorgeous fish. And I just love it back there. Like, I'm a Garber Club member and I like this water better. But it's very marginal. By mid-May, it might be dry or near dry. So it's a springtime and fall fishery. But the Hendricksons can be amazing, but it still isn't as good as anywhere on Oatka below Spring Brook. But and that's another museum brown there too. And the nice thing is you have it to yourself. I've never had a fisherman even walk by me there. It's I think it's absolutely beautiful. I can't wait to be on it this spring.
That looks like is that a bamboo rod there in this
Oh
picture?
yeah, I have way too many bamboo rods. I don't even know how many I own. I should be locked up with all the money I blow on bamboo rods. But I also sell them too, and I also know a lot of the builders. And I used to sell Bob Taylor rods, but he just went out of business, and Ted Simro rods to customers. But anyone that has any questions about bamboo, whose work is really nice. I know most of the guys out there that do it. And
Okay.
it is an addiction, so you got to watch out for it, because the artwork, the workmanship that goes into these is pretty amazing with a really, really good cane rod. But I like other materials too. I fish graphite and glass. I fish it all. I'm just a fanatic on anything related to trout fishing. But yeah, have any of you guys ever fished in museum water?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Oh.
Oop, I can't hear you.
Sounds like Al said he had.
Oh, he had, okay.
But,
Anyway,
yeah, I was a guest, at one time, we had a couple of chapter members who were paid the annual fee, and I was a guest a couple of times up there. Yeah,
Okay.
it's beautiful, beautiful water.
It is nice, and I know Gene used to be a member.
Yeah, Dave Morrow and Gene, and then I think maybe Brian Petrie used to be.
Okay. I don't think any of those people are back there now. The only person I know is the head of the Garber Club, Greg Rapley. He still fishes back there. I run into him, and that's it. But, a lot of guys want to catch a lot of fish. And when I go out there, I'm more into the aesthetics, being out in the woods, being in the middle of nowhere. And fishing can be really good, but it also can be pretty horrible. But I still like the scenery. And so I'm probably back there more than even the Garber Club water, even though that's great too. I just like the fact that it's so quiet up there. And I think my biggest overall fish up there is probably around 2 feet. But I know there's bigger fish up there that I'm sure of. Doesn't mean I'm going to catch them, but I know they're there. So if any of you guys have any questions with bamboo, feel free to contact me. And that's an Oatka brown that I caught in the park this year. And that's a nice 16-inch brown. I love the color pattern of it, and it was just beautiful. And I always hope the park is going to rebound, but a lot of my customers that used to pretty much live in the park, they're getting very discouraged with the lack of fish there. And my measurement would be like when you do a trico hatch in the park, I mean, you see schools of fish everywhere going crazy. And I can go to a trico hatch now in the park and really not see anything. So I don't know. I'm in favor of what they did with the change of no stocking from Springbrook on down. And I hope they give it at least 4 or 5 years to see what happens. But I think there's a lot more going on than just the ducks eating the fish. And
I've heard there's a lot of northern pike swimming from the Genesee River is one.
Yeah. Well, the pike have always been there, and they used to be in tremendous numbers when I was a kid, because I fished Oatka since I was like 15. And we used to always see a lot of pike, and now I see a few, but I always wonder about, pollution and Oh, there's so many different factors, I think, that are affecting Oatka and Springbrook, but I'm on these committees regarding Springbrook, and the Garbage Club is doing a lot of good things to try to improve their water, because their water, which is just above our house, used to be tremendous. And then it all backed up and became a lake, and they lost all their flows, and they even had a meeting talking to state people about removing the hatchery in the dam in the hatchery. And because that's, we've gone through with DEC guys, and the guys saying that's the problem, is this little dam right by one of the hatchery buildings. So there's a movement up front where maybe this will happen, because these DEC guys are convinced that's the problem. And I really think they got to focus more on Springbrook than Oatka, because I think Springbrook makes Oatka.
Bob, it's Ralph Rothfelder there.
Oh, hey, how are you?
Thanks, thanks for being here tonight. A second meeting is in the next couple of weeks, or maybe maybe April 1st, March 1st. But you're right, the big issue is the dam at the hatchery. But the bureaucracy seems to at least be somewhat in tune that is the problem, and may signal the fact that there is some willingness to look at that and make changes, which would make a huge difference to the Springbrook properties.
Right, and Greg, I was talking to Greg today, and he was saying that there's not as much resistance as you would think.
Exactly, well, that's what I'm saying. The bureaucracy
Yeah.
seem to be,
I'd love to see that. Because I really believe like the 900 needs tons of attention. It's a disaster back there. And I really think until you correct Springbrook, Oatka is probably not going to get better, because I think Springbrook makes Oatka the fishery it is.
the other thing is that while the DEC talks about a lot of things, they don't talk about a longitudinal invertebrate study. And unless we understand what the food is in either one of those creeks, we're not going to understand what's going on with the fish.
True. Yeah, that's definitely true. And so, but I'm encouraged with the position that that maybe this will happen. Maybe that dam will go. And I figured that would be a not possible with the bureaucracies the way they are. But it sounds kind of encouraging to me, because I'd love to see Springbrook go back to the way it was, you know, because it all went downhill around the same time, around 2015, where both fisheries just went from really great fishing to almost no fishing.
Well, we were there, I'm going to say 3 or 4 weeks ago, and we couldn't scare a fish up at the 900, but we went up to the dam. and
Okay.
Salmon were trying to jump over the dam.
Oh, okay.
Stacked up underneath the dam, and the mergansers trying to herd them up and eat the smaller ones, you know? So
Oh, you saw the mergansers?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think they're a year-round bird, but I think there's even more of an influx of mergansers now that we have cold weather again.
one of the suggestions from one of the hatchery guys was that the DEC needs to ban 100 or 1,000 of them and offer $100 reward for anybody that shoots one and brings a banded one in.
Oh. I wish they could do something. I mean, they're everywhere. I see mergansers in summertime. I have a little secret spot on Oatka I go to, and one day I went there and there are at least 25 there. I wish I had taken a picture of it. It was
You
so
took a
disturbing.
shotgun with you.
I know, I wish it was like, I just wish I could. So I'm hoping it'll get better, but I don't know. What do you think, Ralph?
You know, until we can address the issues on Spring Creek, and we can come up with some thought process relative to the mergansers, and I don't think the DEC is even contemplating that at the moment. I think
Yeah,
a long slog ahead of us.
okay. Any questions for me on fly time, guys?
Bob, do you get a lot of competition from like offshore fly tires? I get these emails once in a while from people from, like Africa
Yeah.
and places, offering to, sell us dozens of flies and things. And
Yeah, not really, because my flies are different than those flies. I mean, they're just, the colors are right on, the workmanship doesn't compare. I mean, they, of course, they crank them out by the ton, and it's just a different kind of fly. I mean, some of the basic flies, like anyone can make a woolly bugger. I mean, but to make like a nymph the right way, to make a catskill dry the right way, I mean, they're passable, but if you would compare like a fly from Sri Lanka to one that Mary Daddy tied, they're light years apart.
Bob's flies are Cadillacs. These other ones are Zuzus.
Well, I'm very picky. I'm never happy with what I do, and I'm always looking for ways to do it better. I'm always looking for ideas. I'm always talking to fishermen. I'm always trying to get their secret flies too. A lot of guys don't like to share those.
So
But-
what fly do you find yourself tying the most, Bob?
Oh, boy. For my retail people, I swear by a usual. I love that fly. And it doesn't look like anything. What it is, it's made out of snowshoe rabbit. The wings are snowshoe rabbit and the tail snowshoe. And the body is the body hair from the foot. And you have to kind of mix some softer fur in to dub it on. And it doesn't work on Springbrook for me at all. But if I go anywhere else and fish are taking mayflies, I don't even care what they're taking.
Do you use the old Fran Better pattern?
You know, I do. I use the fluorescent, I think it's red or orange thread, and I like
Yeah.
that. I like that thread kind of seeping through, and it just is amazing how fish chase that down when they're taking mayflies. So that's probably the one fly I try to get my customers into, as long as they're not fishing a lot on Springbrook.
Yeah.
But there are other patterns too. There's so many, and I'm always, I do the Euro flies too. I mean, there's so many out there, and I buy all the books, and I would love reading up on this stuff. And so I'm always learning myself. It's just never-ending process, to say the least. Right, Ralph? He's seen my dungeon where I work. And it is a dungeon.
You gotta see it. It's the most modern thing you've ever seen in your life. I'm bullshitting everybody.
What was the name of that inn you used to stay at in the Beaver Kill?
Well, it used to be called the Bonnie View on the Beaver Kill, and now it's called the Beaver Kill Valley Inn. It's like a $400 a night inn that's owned by.
Oh, okay, yeah, I know where it is. I just couldn't recognize the old name. Yeah, okay.
Yes. It used to be called the Bonnie View, and it was classic because there was these old time fishermen there, and a bunch of these guys showed me how to cast, and it was just a great experience for a 13-year-old to be down there, and then seeing Elsie Darby, and she sat me right down right away. And she says, "You want to learn how to tie a fly?" And she showed me how to do it, and I always remember that. And I tend to think that if I didn't go in there, I probably never would have liked to tie flies for other people. But the whole lifestyle that they led and the way they were just was a big influence on me.
Well, I'm envious. You certainly rubbed elbows with some of the greatest.
Yeah, and Francis was great too. I always liked Francis. If I tied a dozen wolves a day, I could sleep in a ratty trailer out back. And lived on hot dogs and beer, nothing better than that. But there's other people too. Carl taught me a lot. And the funny thing is, years ago, right when I was going to start the business, Dennis Skarka at Catskill Flies, he spent a half a day with me, kind of showing me the ins and outs of commercial tying and how to run a business. And he was a great help. I feel bad that he passed away, I think like maybe 2 years ago. And now that shop is I forgot the name of it now, but it isn't called Catskill Flies anymore, but he was an amazing fly tire. But there's other people too. There's Frank Kuttner. He had a really nice shop on the Upper Beaver Kill, and all of his customers were people that stayed in the private, really exclusive fishing clubs up on the Upper Beaver Kill. And my flies are going to these really beautiful old inns, and that was fun too. And Frank is a fantastic tire. So, but I'm always learning. I'm never happy, and I always read anything on the subject, new fishing book, and I got it. So it's been a good experience. I don't
Now,
get out as much as I like to.
Who are some of the customers you tie for that, if we wanted to buy some of your flies, where would we go to get them?
Oh, you would go to the Daddies.
Okay.
The Daddies have a lot of flies. The Beaverkill Valley Inn doesn't order a lot for me. I probably tie up maybe, I don't know, probably about 100 dozen for them or less. But the Daddies, I don't know how many flies I have no idea. I don't want to know. I just tie every night for them. So, but also you can order directly from me, and I have a whole system because I work so much. A lot of times I'm either tying or I'm not here. I'm doing my other job. I just leave it in the mailbox for you.
Okay.
So I have tons of regular customers that I've never met because I just leave them for them. And so it's an easy system to pick up your flies. And and also, if Ralph knows, you go in the house, this is a fishing house. Everything is trout.
You need to tell them the minimums that you tie. You don't tie one or twos.
No, I usually tie, I start at about 6 patterns. But I do have people come in, if I have a beginner person, I'll give them a variety pack of stuff. And so I charge one price for a dozen and one price for one fly. But it's really hard when you're making 1 or 2 flies because you get like a production thing going, like an assembly line.
Yeah.
And so it's really like these flies right here, 17 dozen flies that you get a rhythm going, and you can make a dozen or maybe 14 an hour, maybe, and that's a tough fly to make in general. But 1 or 2 is really tedious, and then you do another 1 or 2, but I'll do that for somebody that's just starting out.
I like to tie flies, but I'd starve based on how many I do per hour.
It can be very time consuming, to say the least.
He may have learned from the Daddies, but he does use a bobbin when he ties.
He does.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna check out off of the net here. He does use a bobbin.
He goes through periods where he does do
We'll see you
that.
guys later.
That's old school. Like
The joke in the chapter is I don't use a bobber when I tie flies.
oh, you don't?
No, that's the joke.
And you really don't, Al?
No, I don't.
Wow.
I do all by hand, half hitches as I go along, and so it's a novelty. And in fact, they threatened to throw me out of the chapter.
And he tries to teach other people how to do it that way. Amazing.
Well, Joe Fox
Yeah.
does that every now and then.
So Al, we're gonna give you a bobbin as your going away present when you have to leave.
Well, I'll put it with the other 5 bobbins I got in the bottom drawer.
Now,
I
why
got
don't you
some
use a
bobbins.
bobbin?
I got some bobbins. I just don't like to use them. That's all.
Oh, okay, because that was old school.
Yeah, I'm a purist. I'm not like you, Bob.
Well, a lot of people like to ask me about fly tying vices, what vices I like. And I do like the Dyna King vice for most of my time, just a Dyna King professional. I don't believe in rotary tying. I like rotary vices more because when I make nymphs, I like to look at the side of the nymph for some reason. And so I like it because I can move it to the side and get the proportions right. But I don't like the concept of like wrapping hackle with a rotary. I think you have better control when you use your hand versus turning the handle. I also like HMH vices. They make a new vice called a TR that's really nice. I like the Regals, but I go through a lot of jaws. I've probably gone through 8 different vice jaws because if you don't put it just right and it pops out, the jaw shot. But a lot of pro tires like Regals. I use the Dyna King mostly. And I have Renzettis too. And they're okay. They're good. They're all good. They're definitely all good.
Yeah, but some are better than others.
Yeah, yeah, as long as it holds a hook, it's fine. And, but I still like the traditional vice angle over the angles that you would see like in a Renzetti or even, what's the Dyna King makes something called a Barracuda. And that's kind of like a Renzetti with the rotary option. And I don't do rotary tying. I've tried, and the only thing I would do rotary tying for is if I'm making streamers, you make those silver bodies, the tinsel bodies. That could be an advantage to be able to do that. But that's me though. Everybody's different on what they like.
Most of us won't tie the number of flies in a lifetime than you do in several months.
Oh, yeah, yeah, it's crazy. It's nuts.
One day.
One day, I'll be up till 1 o'clock tonight. That's why I'm drinking coffee. I'm getting ready.
Do you have any other recommendations for tools or things like that you use? Scissors and
Well, you know,
Boss.
what is it? What's the common scissor that everybody has? The oh shoot, what do they call that? They're Dr. Slicks. They're okay. They're okay, but they don't hold an edge very long. I like oh shoot, what's his fight? It's actually a seamstress's scissor. It's blue. Oh shoot, AK Best recommended it in one of his books. I could look it up, but I use that a lot. But it's like anything else for certain flyers, you use certain kinds of scissors. But I just find I go through Renzetti's by the ton. Or not Renzetti's, the Dr. Slicks. But you know, I'm tying in a way that most of you guys would never tie in ever. So I go through stuff really quick. And you know, I use uni thread for pretty much everything. A lot of hooks. I use a lot of Mustad hooks, and they're made in Japan. But I also do a lot of Daiichi hooks. I usually buy them by the 1,000, depending on, you know, what I'm making. And hooks have really shot up in price lately. Since COVID, they've really gone up. But in general,
we had a question from Bob Park. What about your favorite threads, and use any GSP?
I've never tried that. No, I use mainly uni. They're all good though. I guess I've never heard of GST.
GSP.
GSP. No, I've never heard of that. No, I'm not sure where that's sold.
Why do you like uni versus UTC? Because UTC is multi-threaded and can flatten easier.
I don't know. I just, I haven't tried what you're talking about. Sometimes they can make fly tying more complicated than it needs to be. And they try to get you to buy things that aren't really necessary, but I'm sure it's good thread. I just have never tried it.
Okay.
I'll have to try it. GST.
No, I'm not talking GSP, I'm talking UTC, which is ultra thread.
Oh, is that like 18 aught?
No, I'm not talking about Viva stuff. I'm talking about ultra thread.
Huh, I don't know. I don't know the product. I'm sure it's good, but I just don't know it. There's so much out there.
Yeah, GSP, I was in the chat, gel spun, let me get it, polyethylene or polyester, gel spun polyester, so.
No, does Orvis sell that?
Beats me.
Yes, they do. I think it's also a UTC product. I know JDoc sells it. It's good for deer hair flies. It's very tough. It's very hard to
Oh, I
cut,
see. It's heavy
but you
duty
can-
thread.
When it's thin,
Thin. It's thin, but it's tough. It
Huh.
won't break. That's why if you're doing a compared on something like that, that you really want to lean on it,
Oh, I'll have to
it's good for
write
that.
this down. GST. I'll look it up because I have accounts with like Caroline. I bet they
T.
probably have it.
P as in Peter.
P.
Peter, GSP.
Do you do any like really big patterns like for saltwater or?
See, I really don't do salt. I just do traditional trout flies. I don't do trib flies. I've often wanted to do Atlantic salmon flies, That would be the next thing I'd like to play around with, but I've never done salt. I've talked to guys, there are guys out there that specialize in salt patterns. And, but I know very little about that. It's more just trout stuff, traditional trout flies, but I do the Euro nymphs and those are fun to fish. The beads are so expensive though. It's like when I get one caught in a tree, I climb that tree and get that fly. I want that bead back. But it's kind of fun. You make friends with all the people you buy stuff from. Like I'm good friends with the people up at Angler Sport Group. They're so nice up there. They treat me like a king when I go up there to buy my stuff. And so you really get to know the wholesalers really well. And it's just a kind of a fun thing to do.
What do you use for like weighting? What kind of?
What kind of lead?
Yeah, what kind of, are you using non-toxic leads and things like that?
No, I use the standard lead. If I'm gonna let up a fly, I want it to really sink. And a lot of those lead-free leads really don't help the fly to sink. So I buy the real lead and actually buy them in spools like this, about like that. Because I go through so much lead. And I mainly use 0.015 for like flies from size 8 down to like 14, and then I use 0.01 for the smaller stuff. So like even on like a little pheasant tail that I make for people on Springbrook, I'll put a little lead in it because I really want it to sink. So I go through lead by the ton also. But the big thing that I spend most of my money on is hooks and necks. And I get everything from Mets, but I could get stuff from Whiting too, but I like Mets better. I think you get more for your money with a Mets neck. And the Mets neck also has the spade hackles on the side, which is where you get your tailing for your dry flies. And I really like that option of having the side hackles. And the necks are really full and you get a lot of small hackles. And I know Whiting's probably the best. But I mean, how much do they charge now for a #1 Whiting dry fly neck? What would that be?
Lots.
Probably over $100.
Oh, yeah, easy.
Easy, okay. See, and I do the grade 3 Mets and the quality is fantastic. The colors are really good. I hardly ever have to return anything I get from them. Every now and then I do, but if I get like 50 necks, I might return 1 or 2. But the necks are tricky, but Carl Coleman taught me so much about that when I was a kid. But it's fun. It's been a fun business. I didn't know I'd be that busy at it. And I can't give up because I have a basement full of materials. Right, Ralph? Oh, I think he's muted.
It's not a basement, it's a dungeon, let's face it.
It is a dungeon. There's no way around it. Those people in Tree Locker got nothing on me.
Absolutely not.
Huh.
I think he's got a secret tunnel that goes all the way to Spring Creek.
Yeah. Well, it is nice to be on the water. I'm lucky there. But I hope it comes back. I hope the fishing does recover here because I don't know anymore. What are other people's experiences with this fishing up here?
I agree with you on Springbrook. It's really and not so great the last couple of years. Ever since that last big merganser raid,
Yeah,
it's never come back.
it really hasn't. And like this fall, I had great fishing right at the railroad bridge with a friend of mine. The trout were feeding like sharks. We saw fish and now they're all gone. And like even up above the hatchery, you walk up to fish. About a month ago, I was up there and I saw schools of trout and I was so encouraged that I caught a bunch of fish. And then I went back last week and walked the whole length and I saw 2 fish. So I don't know if they go upstream. Hopefully they go into the Garden Club water, but I don't know. Oh, I think Ralph is. Somebody should tell Ralph he's got to unmute, huh?
That's usually not a problem with Ralph.
Oh. I think he's talking, so I don't know anymore. I'm superstitious and I don't want to jinx the fishing because I'm hoping it'll come back because that's why I moved here. I didn't want to go somewhere else.
Well, when you were down there a couple of weeks ago, did you see any rising for midges?
You know, it's funny, like being that I live right on the 900, I used to go there in the dead of the winter. It could be 30 below out and you'd see dumpling trout all winter. And I have not seen a rise up above the railroad bridge this winter.
Well, it
So-
always used to be one of my great loves. I used to like to go down there in the winter on a warm day and use
Yeah.
midges, use dries, midge dries.
Oh, I loved it too. I agree. It was so much fun to be out there in the middle of a snowstorm with rising trout. But I don't see them free rising like that around the railroad bridge at all now.
Yeah.
Except we hit a really good hatches this fall with a friend of mine. And they were feeding like crazy on tiny little like number 28 and 30 midges. And if we catch 3 or 4, that would be a good evening or day. It was actually midday that we're out fishing. But I was really hoping, so I don't even know, but I know the fishing club below our house, and I do help out back there. They have fish. They at least so far, hopefully this cold weather hasn't affected that too, but they have fish. And they had really good fishing there this year. So it's hard to explain, but I really think the 900 needs a lot of stream improvements, and I'm hoping TU and can get into addressing that, because I can get permission for them to come in on our side to do the work.
Now, for
So-
those of us who aren't from this area, where is the 900? Explain what that is.
Sure, it's right in the town of Caledonia. You go down the little main street and you're gonna see a railroad depot. And there's actually a big sign. They just put a big sign up recently, and you pull in and you take the trail back or the tracks back and you see the bridge. And so at the railroad bridge is a little water above, and that can be really good fishing. And then it goes right to the start of the fishing club. And what people don't do is they don't realize that they can fish right down to the wire on the 900. So a lot of guys don't even know that I think the best spot is just above the fishing club wire. I mean, it can be tremendous fishing there. But I don't see a lot of guys back there. I actually see more guys on the fishing club fishing this year than I do in the 900. For some reason, I mean, there's some fishermen now, but for about 4 years, there was nobody there. But they're coming back little by little, and I'm hoping it'll continue.
So what you do, Gordon, is you drive past the fish hatchery, which will be on your left as you're coming from the south. If you're coming from the south, you drive by the fish hatchery, and then just a little ways past the entrance to the fish hatchery, there's a little DEC parking area. That's
Okay.
where most people park in that parking area. You can go into the hatchery entrance, and also there's places to park right on a hatchery property, but I usually park in that little DEC parking area right by the railroad track.
Yeah, and with the hatchery, that used to be the best fishing on Springbrook, I think, was above the hatchery, where you park in the hatchery, and that hasn't rebounded. But like I said, that's where I saw schools of fish a month ago. But the biggest fish were usually taken out. There are some monsters in there. It's just thick with trout, but since 2015, 2014, and it's almost not, there's just a few fish. It's not even worth fishing there.
Hey, Bob.
Yeah.
The problem with further up on the 900, it's called muck.
Further, yeah, it is mucky back there, but that doesn't stop me. That's a non-factor for me, but a lot of people don't like, I call it quicksand. It is a little muddy at the lower part of the 900.
I'd say it's more than a little muddy. Very mucky. And you better not have corkers, because you probably won't come back with your bottom.
You probably won't have them. You're right. You're right.
Yeah, I don't think you need any corkers there.
No, but you can literally fish from the wire up, but the fishing club is on the other side. So the big thing is you don't touch their land. You don't walk on their land at all, but most people are right-handed that fish, and actually the best way to fish that is from the, if you're facing upstream, is from the left-hand side anyways.
Yeah.
But I just hope it comes back because it was such a tremendous fishery and it went
Yeah.
from one extreme to the other.
It was really a great gem while it lasted. Hopefully it comes back.
I hope so. I hope so. The 900 needs a lot of attention. It really needs the work on those deflectors. And some people say take them out. Some people say put them upstream. But anyway, you look at it, they really need to be rebuilt or removed. And where I live, I can get permission to bring a work crew back there. So hopefully it'll get better. The hatches are off. The sulfurs used to be incredible. And they probably slowed down way before the mergansers. And there's still some sulfurs, but it isn't what it used to be.
Well, you mentioned the dam earlier, really a
Yeah.
lot of that insect life, they really need more of a clean bottom rather than, the silty bottom. So, if you do take that dam out, that's going to create a more consistent current and flow through there.
Right.
You're gonna cut down on a lot of the silt and you'll get back to the stream bed and the rocks and that's what those insects really need is a clean bottom with some rocks on it and some
Yes.
striations in the bottom.
That's exactly what we need.
Yeah, so hopefully, I'm really pleased with the fact that the state's even considering this. That's amazing. I didn't think that would happen. Just from my view of bureaucracies in general. I'm a little cynical about those things.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's their track record. So I can see why you're a little cynical.
Yeah. And it makes sense because if you take the dam out, you have more spawning habitat. There's more gravel for the fish. So I'm going to stay optimistic.
They're trying to go upstream now and they can't go.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
They're at the dam. If you go up to the dam, you'll watch them trying to jump the dam, which they can't do.
Oh, yeah, it's a sight to see that. I go up there every now and then. They'll load up there.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that's the reason why guys aren't seeing a lot of fish in the 900. And usually when spawning's going on, they do disappear. So I'll continue to stay hopeful with everything. But any questions about tying in general or?
You mentioned AK Bench before. Do you have any suggestions on books or other sources of information of people who provide you or us with techniques on how to?
As you know, I'm a crazy book collector, anything to do with fly fishing. And I really like Dick Touloure's books. His books are fantastic. They're practical. His flies are beautiful. He was a really pretty well-known fly tyer in the 80s and 90s. And you could probably pick him up on Amazon used for 15, 20 bucks. So he's definitely one of my favorites. My favorite bug book has got to be Hatches with Cucci and Nastasi. There's no better book for mayflies than that book. And I love the comparidons. That's all I like. I make all these complex flies. My own flies are minimalist. where sometimes I'm tempted just to use a hook because I make so many flies. But I love the Cucci Nastasi bug books. I'm trying to think another good, a classic tire would be anything. The Deddy's book is fantastic. That's kind of a collectible, but you can still find it. The Harry Darby books are classic. But if I wanted a basic format for tying trout flies, I would go to like Dick Touloure. And he's got photos, and I'm still old school. I like books better than YouTube, even though I do YouTube. I still like books better.
That was one of the questions in our chat. Do you follow any of the YouTube tires like Barry Clark or Tim Flagler?
I do a little bit, but I find I get bored with those. I don't know why. I can't watch anything fishing related on YouTube, but I'll watch other things, but not fishing. I don't know what it is. But I know that's a way most people learn now is with YouTube, and I'm sure that's better than a book, but I'm a book guy. But there's some great tires out there that you see on YouTube. And a lot of times if I get a pattern I don't know how to make, I'll look it up on YouTube. And I'm looking up patterns all the time on the internet. A guy just dropped off a fly yesterday. I got to figure out what it is, and I'll be searching the internet for it. So it's a great resource.
Now this, your fly tying business is only about half of what you do in your life, right? This is
Yes.
not your main gig, and so
Yes, no, my main gig is pretty crazy too. You know, I work with high-risk families. All my referrals come from Child Protective, and the whole idea is to try to work with the family so the kids aren't removed. And so it's the clinical work is interesting. Some of the paperwork is ridiculous. I mean, but I do like that kind of work. I enjoy it, but I'm really burned out on the paperwork that I have to do on a daily basis. If I could just work with clients, I'd love that. But
What's your suggestion to the rest of us that like to tie flies to becoming a better fly tyer? What kind of words of wisdom can you give us?
To me, the big thing is to work on proportions of your pattern. It's like artwork. Proportions are everything. So like if this fly right here, this yellow stone, I measure everything out on that fly. I just don't randomly put something on and try to guess the size. I have little tools to measure, like this is partridge hackle underneath it. I have a little gauge, so I literally measure everything on that fly. And even the tail, I want the tail to be about half the length of the shank. So I measure it against the shank. So I think the key is measuring everything you put on. I wouldn't worry about the wing case, but everything else. So really studying proportions to me is where it's at. And of course, going slow and using YouTube and, you know, whatever material you identify with is really study up. And also going to shows is fun too. And seeing these great tyers make their stuff. And I know a lot of people like to tie in groups, and that's kind of fun. Catskills every year has these groups where they get together and tie, and everyone has a good time hanging out, talking fly tying and fishing. So, but I think proportions is everything. Like a lot of times when I see guys flies, I don't say anything, but a lot of times the proportions are way off. Like you might have your hackle too big. And so literally, and then most of the time I use the hook for my measurement tool, except for like hackles, and I'll use a gauge. But the rest of my materials, I measure on the hook shank or the length. Like on a dry fly, I would like the tail to be from the bend to the eye. And so I'm using that for my measurement for like the classic kind of Catskill dry fly.
what's some advice about durability, making sure your flies don't, that's a big problem with mine. I'd catch a fish or two and then the whole
And they
thing's
blow up.
unraveling. Yeah.
Well, you know, like if I have a fly where I palmer the hacker, and palmering is wrapping the hackle from the bend to the eye. And a lot of flies you palmer. If I palmer a hackle, I'm going to run a thread the opposite direction through it to keep it from breaking. Because when a palmered fly is not like reinforced with thread going the opposite way, it'll blow up right away. Like with my nymphs with a wing case like that, I put 3 coats of lacquer on. And for all my wholesale flies, anything I sell, that's got 3 coats of lacquer on, so that wing case in front of it won't blow up. So that's and then also lacquering the eyes. I put a couple coats on for that. I think the more tightly you dub the bodies, the less likely your fly's going to kind of blow up on you. So I do use a lot of lacquer to reinforce different aspects of the fly. So,
All right. Well, it's been a great talk, Bob. I've learned a
Oh, thank
awful
you.
lot tonight. Any other questions before we call it a night there?
Well, thank you very much, Bob.
Oh, thank you. Enjoyed this. Thank you for inviting me, guys.
Yeah, thanks, Bob.
Hope this wasn't too boring.
Thank you. That was great.
Dee, did you have a question? I heard you start to talk there.
I just wondered what you thought of using UV resin. You talked about lacquer. I'm sorry, you can't really hear me very well.
I can't really make out what you're saying.
Sounds like a question about using UV resin.
Oh, I do that. Yes. Yes, I do that. I do that on the wing cases. Sometimes I like that glassy kind of epoxy look for certain patterns. So I do that, and I use a little light to fortify it. But my primary material I use to make the flies more durable is probably lacquer. But on those Euro patterns, I think it looks great when you use the UV and then use the light to kind of make the material more solid.
Yeah.
It looks good. It looks really good on a lot of flies, especially with the Euro flies. So,
Thanks.
thank you.
Okay, I'll turn off the PowerPoint there. Well, it's really been great having you, Bob.
Oh, thank you.
We'll have to,
Appreciate you letting me join this.
That's great.
okay, well, thanks
Thank you.
everyone for sharing your Valentine's Day with the Canandaigua TU.
So sweet.
Yes, the hottest date in town here, so.
All right,
Good
everyone.
night,
have a good
everyone.
night.
Thank you.
Night, everyone. We'll see you in March.
Yep.
Right.
Night.